M1 and the A52. In Surrey, the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 10 and junction 9 is running about 30 minutes late. And on the trains, East Midlands Railway and Thameslink have major disruption between London's St Pancras International and Luton Airport Parkway. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We want you to boost your bank account with an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. There's also a terrific £10,000 to spend on a Riviera travel holiday of a lifetime for two. So whether you fancy a cruise or an escorted tour, you'll have over 30 worldwide destinations to choose from.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Another crisis for the Prime Minister. I debate tonight, does the man actually have any judgment? Plus, did Rachel Reeves mislead the pub and hospitality industry in her budget last year? Well, Labour donor Sacha Lord certainly thinks so. And the Nuneaton rapist, yes, a 12-year-old girl that was raped, the government says he will be deported back to Afghanistan. But will he? That and much more after the news with Sam Francis.
Nigel, thank you, and good evening to you. Just after 7 o'clock, well, the top story tonight. Police say the 13-year-old arrested over the double stabbing at Kingsbury High School is a former pupil and that the attack is not being treated as terrorism. The Metropolitan Police Force say the British national entered a first-floor classroom at the Brent School at lunchtime on Tuesday, sprayed a substance at a pupil before stabbing another 13-year-old boy. As the suspect then fled, he stabbed a 12-year-old in the corridor before running from the building. He was arrested just before 5 o'clock the same evening after a member of the public raised concerns about his behaviour at a nearby mosque. Counter-terror officers are leading the investigation, but they say there is no evidence of any link to the mosque and that investigators are now leaning towards a personal grievance rather than extremist ideology. Well, almost 24 hours on from the first reports of an active shooter in Canada in the west of the country, 9 people are confirmed dead and at least 25 injured in attacks at both a school and a nearby home in British Columbia. Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, around 415 miles or so north of Vancouver, is where 6 of the victims were found dead. A 7th died on their way to hospital and 2 more were discovered at a nearby home. Police believe the shootings are linked. The suspect was also found dead at the school with what officers describe as a self-inflicted injury. Authorities say they know that the attacker's identity has been confirmed, but they have not yet released a name. Well, we are waiting to hear from the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney speaking in just a few short moments' time. We'll keep across those details for you and bring you the very latest. But here's what he had to say slightly earlier today.
Parents, grandparents, sisters, brothers in Tumbler Ridge will wake up without someone they love. The nation mourns with you. Canada stands by you.
Also breaking tonight, Thames Valley Police has confirmed it has held discussions with specialist lawyers at the Crown Prosecution Service over allegations Andrew Mountbatten Windsor shared confidential government reports with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The force says it is carrying out an ongoing assessment into potential misconduct in public office and is examining material contained within the so-called Epstein files released by the US Justice Department. No decision has been made so far on whether a full criminal investigation will be launched, but police say they are making progress as quickly as possible. And Sir Keir Starmer has been branded today the most gullible former director of public prosecutions in history. That's after admitting his former aide did not give a full account before being handed a seat in the House of Lords. At Prime Minister's questions this afternoon, the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch pressed the PM on why Matthew Doyle was given what she called a job for life. That's despite campaigning for Sean Morton after he had been charged with indecent images offences.
He cannot explain why he gave this man a peerage, and I think they should be wondering why they're still cheering for him after that. And the Prime Minister, sometimes likes to claim, as he just did, that he cares about violence against women. The truth is, he only cares about the victims when he's trying to save his own skin.
But Sir Keir Starmer, well, he hit back, telling Kemi Badenoch he'll take no lectures from the Conservatives on standards in public life.
I promised my party and my country there will be change. And yesterday I removed the whip from Matthew Doyle. I'll tell you what other action we've taken, Mr. Speaker. Along with the Safeguarding Minister, I and this government have introduced the most far-reaching violence against women and girls strategy. And I'll tell you what else we've done. This government has introduced a pay rise for millions of working-class women. What did the Leader of the Opposition do? She opposed it. This government's introducing greater protection for women at work. What did the Leader of the Opposition do? She opposed it.
Well, those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in around an hour's time. Now, though, it's over to Nigel.
It's another muddle for the Prime Minister, and another debate is opened up about his judgment. What's it all about? It's about a guy called Matt Doyle who acted as one of his spin doctors. And he went out and campaigned for a guy called Sean Morton in 2017 for a local council election, and this guy had already been charged with child sex offences. Now, the story broke about this, front page, Sunday Times, at the end of December. We can see the picture here. PM, new aid campaign for paedophile, but made him appear. And it all makes you ask, how on earth can this happen? Surely it's the same with the Mandelson case. He must have been privy to this information and yet ennobled him. Well, Starmer did hit back on it, but see whether you believe him.
Mr. Speaker, Matthew Doyle did not give a full account of his actions. I promised my party and my country there will be change. And yesterday I removed the whip from Matthew Doyle. I'll tell you what other action we've taken, Mr. Speaker. Along with the Safeguarding Minister, I and this government have introduced the most far-reaching violence against women and girls strategy.
Did not give a full account? Well, it looked pretty clear to me what the account was. So the Prime Minister knew this guy had gone out and campaigned for somebody who'd already been charged with paedophile offences, although not at that moment sentenced, and still put him in the House of Lords. And I just ask the question, does this Prime Minister have poor judgment? Because I really think he does. I can't work out why. After all, this guy was the boss of the Director of Public Prosecutions, supposed to be, I thought, a forensic lawyer. I just can't get my head around it. Give me your thoughts on it, please. Tweet hashtag Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com. Now, let me introduce my panel. My first panellist tonight used to be known as John Redwood. In fact, he'd been known as John Redwood for a very, very long time, but no longer. Let's have a look at him in action yesterday. Yes, it's now Lord Redwood of Wokingham, and he said earlier he'd done a lot of dress rehearsals and he wanted to make sure he got everything absolutely right. Well, John, do you know what? You might be Lord Redwood, but here on GB News, we're going to carry on calling you John, if that's all right.
That is exactly what I want. It's a great privilege to be back in the Parliament, but I'm doing it because I want to make a contribution to the public debate.
It all looks very grand.
It is very grand in the architecture, yes. But,
the
people mustn't be very grand. We've got to work hard for the public and try and extend the public debate, accepting, of course, that the House of Commons is a place where
and the
big
conversations
decisions
are very
made.
good.
And John McTernan, of course, joins us regular on this show.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that the calibre of debate, whatever you think of the makeup of the House of Lords, is actually better than the Commons.
There's quite a lot of people in the Lords, I'd just go and sit and listen to them talk about it because of the experts and because of the expertise, because of the length of time they've been in public life in various forms. And so I do think the Lords works as it is, but there are absurdities about its continued existence in the 21st century.
So are you making an argument there, John, that actually if our MPs' average age was 15 years older, we might have a better House of Commons?
I think if everybody is your age, of course, it'd be a better House of Commons.
Well, there you are, quite right too.
But I think look, as in everything, there's a space for youth and energy, and there's a good space for age and guile.
Now, when it comes to leading on from that, when it comes to being a Prime Minister, I guess above all, what you have to, and you've got to make a lot of decisions as Prime Minister every day. Above all, what you need is good judgment. And I repeat the point I made a moment ago. This guy reached the top as the boss of a Director of Public Prosecutions. So you would have thought detail would have been the thing he was good at. How are these incredible misjudgments happening?
These, I think, they fall on the Prime Minister. He's the principal person involved. They're huge failures in what they call vetting, and they're using vetting with a lowercase v. This isn't vetting. It's maybe checking, or maybe if you ask Peter Mandelson or if you ask Matthew Doyle, you shouldn't be asking them for their version of what they want to say.
You shouldn't need to.
You should have piles of papers. The House of Lords has an appointments committee. That's meant to function in a certain way. And this thing has been suspicious ever since. You have to say, it feels as though House of Lords positions are offered as part of the HR structure, the HR strategy of Number 10. When they want to move somebody on, they go, we'll put you in the Lords.
Well,
and political appointments are fine in my mind, but this thing to use it to ease somebody out of a job, I don't know.
John, as I said, this guy, big reputation for being forensic, a detail man. Not the most exciting person on earth, but we thought that would be the great...
He would know about evidence, and he would want to see the facts first.
So how is this
with Mandelson, they do the vetting after they've announced that he's going to be in position as ambassador. And then with this one, it was out there. All they had to do was Google it, and they didn't bother. It's absolutely extraordinary.
No,
it is extraordinary.
I had a colleague, she works in the press office, always in the Labour Party, at by-elections. She'd go to any candidate with a pile of papers in a brown folder, and she'd go, I know all this about you, how are we going to explain it? And they would spill their guts to her. They'd tell them, and then she'd go, well, I didn't really know anything about you, but I knew you had something. I had to get you to tell us. And that processes have to be appropriate to the positions. And if you're in the House of Lords, you will be a legislator. You actually are a functioning part of this.
But this keeps happening. And obviously the shadow of the Mandelson thing is bigger than this, and we all know that and understand that. There's a little bit of peace that's broken out for the moment.
There has.
But he's not going to last long, is he?
Hasn't he been taken hostage by his cabinet? And I think he's going to be driven leftwards. Because his judgments are dreadful on the things that matter to normal people in their lives. He wants more jobs, so he puts a tax on jobs. Well, he wants to get the cost of living down, so he goes into net zero and puts the prices of energy up.
Isn't he naturally more left-wing than he's pretended to be?
Yeah, look, I think that Keir Starmer is more comfortable on the soft left of the party. He was invited to be an MP by Ed Miliband. and I think Ed Miliband, probably as a cabinet minister, is his closest political friend. Having been a lawyer for his professional life, his adult life, his closest friends, and we all know that in politics, knowing who people's closest friends is very revealing. Keir's closest friends are lawyers, and that's the world. That's the way he sees the world. Which is why sometimes this is confusing. Why are you not being a prosecutor about this issue?
But a lawyer needs to be given a brief.
Yes, that's true.
And it's who gives him the brief.
That's
He had
that's a very good point.
a chief executive giving him the brief, and then...
But he would have asked that question, wouldn't he? If you were forensic, you would have asked, where's this come from?
Yeah.
Have we got a full intelligence report?
What's behind it?
You know,
and what's behind what's behind
And
it?
He's not really a leader, is he?
It's the Prime Minister's name on everything, so he's got to be very careful.
His style is very much, I'm the chairman of the board, and I'll give you autonomy and you do your thing. And it does mean that if you operate in that way, you have to be able to pull people to account. You have to be able to go, well, why you seem to be going off strategy.
So he outsources decision-making?
He delegates them. He lets them be taken by cabinet ministers, which works well when they're good ones, like Heidi Alexander. Look at the way she rapidly deployed the British Transport Police after that terrorist incident on a train. I thought she did that incredibly well. Some of them really rise to it, and others of them, when they drift away from what you're meant to be delivering, you need to really, sometimes you need to be on a choke chain, don't you?
Final thought on this, John. He's not really a leader, is he?
No, I mean, he's making such a dreadful mess of it. I almost feel sorry for him, because it must be hurting him every day, because he wants to be popular and he's deeply unpopular. He wants to get things right. He always gets it wrong. I mean, if you did the opposite of most of the things he's done, we'd be in not a bad position.
Well, and actually, very much the same could go for Rachel Reeves. Now, in a statement, Lord Doyle has said, I want to apologise for my past association with Sean Morton. His offences were vile, and I completely condemn the actions for which he was rightly convicted. My thoughts are with the victims and all those impacted by these crimes. At the point of my campaigning support, Morton repeatedly asserted to all those who knew him his innocence, including initially in court. He later changed his plea in court to guilty. To have not ceased support ahead of a judicial conclusion was a clear error of judgment for which I run unreservedly. Now, in a minute, let's talk about the truth. Did Rachel Reeves willfully mislead the pub and hospitality industry over business rates during her speech in the last budget? Former Labour donor Sacha Lord certainly seems to think so.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Morning, Angela. How are you?
Morning. I'm sitting here in the magnificent Old Bailey, right in the heart of the City of London, and just having a good giggle at you two.
Well, do you remember our dancer? We had a good time with Kai, didn't we?
I do. And you've joined me today because I've actually got just the other side of the wall from where I am at the moment. I've got 100 dancers ready to start performing at 9:30. We've got the press preview of our 2026 Let's Dance campaign, because I think I've told you about this before, Steve and Anne, that on March the 8th, we're hoping that the whole nation will be dancing on our National Day of Dance, when dance teachers all over the country, some between 20 and 30,000 of them, will be opening their doors and saying to people what you've been saying. Dance is the best kind of exercise you can possibly do for your mind and your body. And if you're somebody who wants to get fit, if you're a bit older and you want to keep, having a long and healthy lifestyle, but you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to do a park run, particularly when the weather's like this in the rain, go to a dance class. It is the best exercise you can possibly do. And that's what we're trying to get everyone to understand or to experience on March the 8th. But leading up to that, Today we've got our preview, and I've got, as I say, 100 dancers here, 10 dance groups who are all going to show us different forms of dance that demonstrate that dance really is brilliant for any age group and for any kind of dance that you want to do.
Are they all ladies? Because I think a lot of people worry about taking up dancing that they haven't got a natural partner.
Oh no, we've got quite a lot of ladies here, yes. But I mean, for instance, the group of over 60s that have come here from the Place, which is the headquarters for contemporary dance, half men and half women. I've got an entire male group who are dancing for mental health.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Some of your reactions at home to my question about Starmer and his judgment. Richard says there is something very wrong with Starmer. There is no sense of connection with empathy or the ability to use emotional reasoning or judgment. His performance today displayed this lack of common understanding or connection. And Cooper says, this isn't simply political incompetence. This is someone who has no judgment at all. Quite frightening that he reached the pinnacle of the public prosecution service and then Prime Minister. Is this the best that the country has to offer, or is it a reflection of the corruption and incompetence at the heart of the public service? Well, maybe we don't have people of a very high calibre now putting themselves forward for elected politics. We'll debate that another day. Now, on the 26th of November last year, we had one of the most anticipated budgets in many, many years. And this is what Rachel Reeves had to say in the Commons on that day about pubs, and in particular, about business rates.
And I will support the Great British Pub through our new national licensing framework, encouraging councils to back our pubs and to back late-night venues with greater freedoms. For business rates, I will introduce permanently lower tax rates for over 750,000 retail, hospitality and leisure properties, the lowest rates since 1991.
Well, it all sounded pretty good, didn't it? There were Republicans up and down the country cheering. Trouble is, actually, the very opposite is the result, with changes in rateable value and actually all of the pubs having business rates increasing, in some cases, very significantly. Well, last night, Sacha Lord, the former nighttime economy advisor for Greater Manchester, put this out on X. I regret so badly donating to the party. This is sickening to watch play out. A fish rots from the head down. He will cost so many hard-working Labour councillors their jobs on May the 7th. And Sacha Lord joins me down the line. I hope. Hello, thank you very much indeed. We've got you. Yeah, you know, I mean, the nighttime economy, pubs, bars, big shout out from the Chancellor in the budget. It just wasn't true, Sacha, was it?
So, Nigel, rewind a bit further, actually, and I was at the Labour Party manifesto launch in Manchester, and she told the audience that was made up of her now cabinet and the world's press that she was going to be the Chancellor of Business and Growth, and she couldn't be further from the truth. The first thing she did was introduce a hike in national insurance, which was catastrophic. But the whole time she said, look, to my industry, I'm going to support you with the business rates reform. So I'm going to look after the small guys, the pubs, the cafes, the small independent restaurants on the high streets, reform the business rates that are broken, and I'm going to go after the big boys with the Amazon warehouses and the parcel forces of the world. We thought, great, okay. And then the clip you've just showed now, she stood at the dispatch box and announced this thing. And we thought, well, do you know what? She's kept to her word. And then my phone lit up within an hour. People started to put the numbers in, and pubs increased on average 76%. Hotels, shockingly, 115%. And then They did their 14th U-turn 2 weeks later, once she realised the public sentiment was right behind us. And she said, actually, I'm going to give a 15% discount to pubs. Well, she'd already increased it by 76%. So 15%, it's nonsense. And why not give it to the whole of the hospitality sector, not just pubs? And today, Nigel, I've spoken at the Nighttime Industry Association conference in Liverpool, 2,000 delegates, and not one person had a good thing to say about Rachel Reeves and the Prime Minister. And in fact, on my panel talk, they asked me at the end if there was one thing I could wish for this year, what would it be? And I said a new Prime Minister and a new Chancellor, and I got the biggest round of applause.
And Sasha, just tell me on the pub industry as a whole, just how serious is the situation?
It's worse now, Nigel, than it was during COVID. I had a conversation with a landlord prior to Christmas who had a pub in Coventry. I'm not going to name the pub. He said, I'm going to hand my keys back. And he handed his keys back in January. But what broke him was the fact that he lived above the pub. This is where his kids grew up, his 2 boys. So not only are his finances in tatters, his mental health is in tatters. He's lost his dream. And this is what the government quite simply do not understand. A pub is more than just a pint. And that's why I tweeted that last night. I was sat watching the news and I thought Captain Flip-Flop may have lost his job at the beginning of the week when we saw Anna Sawar come out and call for resignation. And sadly, it didn't happen. But then again, right at the heart of government, I was starting to hear about this Lord Doyle. And, we're talking about paedophilia and sex trafficking right in the heart of the British government. Never in my lifetime have I ever seen anything like this before. And something has to break. And what I said in that tweet was, look, I know a lot of very, very hard-working Labour councillors in Greater Manchester who are going to lose their seats on the 7th of May. Likelihoods are to your party, Nigel, through no fault of their own. Yeah. And it's because, as I said, the fish rots from the head. It's coming down. And I pray to God there's a leadership contest after the 7th of May.
Sasha Lord, you couldn't have been clearer. Thank you very much for coming on with us this evening.
Thank you.
John, many years in the House of Commons, ministers, prime ministers, chancellors may not willfully mislead the House. Did she do that?
Well, it looks like misleading to me. I think you're right to highlight it. And as we heard very clearly described, that you got the impression listening to the Chancellor that they were going to have lower bills. Yeah. And they're not having lower bills. She was accurate because she said the rate was going to be lower. But she's putting up the valuation, and I think she was also getting rid of a big discount, which the Tories were putting over COVID. And she doesn't mention those. So I think it is completely misleading, because publicans thought they were going to be better off and they were going to be absolutely clobbered.
John, with Sasha Lord, you're losing somebody who worked with Andy Burnham, a supporter of the party, a donor of the party. He was pretty angry.
You could feel, the passion came through his camera. Yeah. And it's righteous, and I think it's right too. And one of the reasons why this dropped out in the budget was, if we remember, in the weeks before the budget, there was preparing for a completely different budget, one in which there were some tax changes on income tax and national insurance, ones in which the government were preparing, apparently, to say, I know we promised you this, but we're going to have to raise some taxes to spend on public services. And when you withdraw from that, you end up with got to move a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. And it looks great on paper, you can present it well. But it turns out the devil is in the detail. Now, every chancellor tries to present their budget to get cheers. Everybody watching who knows anything knows you got to read the Red Book. I don't think it was willful misleading. I think it was political misleading. But I think the core argument here is the system, the ecosystem of our cities, our high streets, is very delicate. And the businesses there, they don't control their own fate entirely. They can't make people come in to use them. They don't control the price of the beer, the brewery. The landlords dictate to a lot of our great shopkeepers and pub owners as well. And the balance of power seems to have shifted towards the landlords and away from the people who provide the service.
That argument is fine But what we're talking about here, in particular, our business rate's totally outdated now, John. It's sort of almost like a feudal thing when you've got people competing with them online, not paying any business rates.
Well, I'd rather not have them, but I don't think anybody has got a scheme yet which can find a replacement. So you've got to live with them. But you've got to take some of them down rather more if you want your high street left.
Otherwise they're going to be gone.
Yeah.
Including too many of our pubs, which is a tragedy in every way, because actually every pub is a parliament. That's where we go and discuss the world. We'll often have our minds changed in a conversation in a pub. You know, you never know. You never know.
Conversations are the best way.
Well, you never know.
Issues.
John could make me a socialist over a pint. No, it's not going to happen. In a moment.
2 pints, maybe.
Maybe 2. I'll grant you that. In a moment, we will discuss the rape of the 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton, the Afghan male found guilty, the Prime Minister telling us he will be deported. But will he?
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Still plenty of unsettled weather throughout the Mediterranean, particularly windy in Corsica, Sardinia, Sicily, and it's going to be a wet one for parts of France as well as Greece. But finally, for much of Iberia at the moment, it is drier and sunnier compared with recent weather, aside from the far south of Spain and Gibraltar. Here, we've got a lot of unsettled weather moving through Corsica, Sardinia, Sicily, parts of Italy, some heavy rain. That pushes into Croatia and Greece next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A very dull day to come for many of us tomorrow. Some brighter weather here and there, but it will be much colder, particularly for northeastern areas. We're starting to get northerly winds, cold air pushing in from the north. Low pressure systems also bringing batches of rain along these weather fronts, and there will be some quite heavy rain across many southern areas through this evening, pushing into the southeast. That should clear by tomorrow morning, but behind it, a mess of cloud and outbreaks of drizzly rain, particularly across parts of Northern Ireland and northeastern areas of England, as well as eastern Scotland through this evening. Will turn a little bit dry though for the far north of Scotland. As a result, with some clearer skies around, it could be quite a chilly start to the day on Thursday. So outbreaks of rain for some areas through Thursday morning. The far north of Scotland getting away with a fairly dry day, though for Shetland and Orkney we've still got a risk of snow showers through Thursday morning. Northern Ireland seeing the worst of drizzly rain. It's quite light, but it will be persistent through much of the day, in fact. Cloudy skies for much of England. The far southwest seeing outbreaks of heavy showers into the morning, so a risk of some quite heavy rain and some quite brisk westerly winds. Still relatively mild out there or across more southwestern areas to start the day on Thursday. Elsewhere, though, a chillier feel to come through the day. We've got these winds coming in from the North Sea across many eastern coasts. That's going to bring a chillier feel, and outbreaks of persistent rain for many northern areas of England and southern Scotland will bring a pretty dismal feel to the day. Across the southwest, though, still 10 or 11 degrees, but that's the last of the mild weather as cold weather becomes more dominant, at least for a time. A risk of snow and sleet. We do have snow and ice warnings in force until around lunchtime on Friday. It's a risk of icy surfaces and snow accumulating over the high ground. But there will be a break in the weather for Saturday, a day of sunshine to come. It won't last all that long, though, because the rain will return for Sunday.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
horrible story that broke yesterday, the conviction of the 23-year-old Afghan cross-channel migrant who raped a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton. But it raises some actually very big questions because there are just too many sexual crimes being committed by Afghans. And I've said for years, if you take people from countries in which women aren't even second-class citizens, don't be surprised if this is the result. Now, the Prime Minister spoke about this today. Listen to the last couple of words.
I want to be absolutely clear, Mr. Speaker, illegal immigrants who commit such appalling acts should not be in this country. That's why we've already removed nearly 60,000 people with no right to be here, and deportations of foreign criminals is up by a third. We're also reforming human rights law to allow us to swiftly remove those with no right to be here.
So he's said to be deported, but I do not believe a word of it, because we don't deport people to Afghanistan. The Germans do, one or two other European countries do. We do not deport people to Afghanistan. And so what will happen in this case, just as with the Afghan who came by boat and threatened repeatedly to kill me and marry my sister, I think marry perhaps was used in a somewhat different context, he's going to serve 2 years in prison and then be out free on the streets, and the same will happen here in my view. I'm joined by David Shipley, crime and justice journalist. The statistics for sexual assault, sexual crimes and rape from Afghans coming here illegally, it's a pretty serious number, isn't it?
It is, and we don't know the real number because, of course, the state doesn't capture this data and doesn't publish it. But we know it's somewhere between 14.5 and 22 times more likely that an Afghan man here will commit a sexual crime than a native Brit will. So it's a hugely greater risk. And I think the difficulty I have is the Prime Minister saying, oh, when we catch them, we'll deport these people. And you're right, they won't get deported. But even if that was true, it's missing the point. The issue here is that we are running an experiment where we import tens of thousands of men we know to be much more likely to commit sexual offences, and then we're waiting to see which amongst them will commit those offences, and then we'll do something about it. It's evil.
Do you think, I know a few years ago, even attempting to debate this subject, you'd be screamed down. Are we having a broader, deeper conversation about it now?
I think we are, and I think the reality is that, we look every week in the news, there are more reports of these horrific crimes committed by migrants, often Afghans. And the reality is, in this case, this girl was playing on the swings when he spotted her. He took her away. He conducted a sustained assault over an hour and 20 minutes. This is not a minor offence anyway. It's a horrific offence. And I think a few years ago, certainly within my lifetime, a story like that would have dominated the headlines for weeks. Yeah. Now, actually, these events are so commonplace that we almost forget about them before the next one comes along. And I think what's happening now is we're realising there is a systemic problem with the behaviour of Afghan men in this country. And it's time for us to stop waiting for them to individually commit crimes before we do something about it, and instead move to say we cannot have any more Afghan men in this country.
We've always been told, John, that if you single out a particular nationality and say something about them, you sort of say there is a common characteristic or a problem, that is deeply racist. But we have to have this debate, don't we? Sorry, I apologise, John. I apologise.
So, look, the key thing in this is the rapist has been captured, prosecuted, he's about to be sentenced, isn't he? Yeah. But will be deported.
He won't be deported.
The last figures I looked at, over 5,000, people in the situation, once prosecuted, have been deported. People are deported to Pakistan. There are ways
not to Afghanistan.
But Afghans do live in Pakistan as well. So we have.
I don't buy that.
We've got a country there.
But I'm sorry, this isn't the point. The rapes have happened. Deporting people after the fact doesn't solve that. The victims have still been created, and the victims are being created by these rapists because we have a policy where we import men who we know to be very likely to rape children.
It's completely wrong to say that there's a particular type of man, a race of man, who is going to be a rapist and therefore should be banned from our country.
But it's not. We know that Afghan men are 14.5 to 22 times more likely to commit rape.
John, the stats are the stats.
The stats.
You're saying that every Afghan man should be banned.
No, I'm saying
You said no more Afghan men.
Hang on. What we're saying, and I'm with David on this, is that there is an increased risk of men, single young men, who come from Afghanistan, and therefore, to protect our country, we should say enough.
It is wrong to do that, because that's saying all Afghan men are a risk in our country, and they're not.
But hang on,
We're
not saying they all are, but if too many of them are, we have to say enough.
Are you saying all the Afghan men should leave the country?
Yes. If they've come illegally, yes.
The refugees don't come here illegally. They come here to claim asylum.
This gets to the heart.
They either claim asylum, and they get it, or they don't get it, and then they're returned.
This gets to the heart of a very debate. John, I mean, what's happening is monstrous. And I thought the point, that David made, that just a few years ago, this story would have dominated the news for day after day, and now it's like an afterthought.
Yes, I mean, it's making the point that we're desperate for these borders to be properly controlled. We've got to stop the flow is the first thing we've got to do. And you and I and others have put forward all sorts of ideas of how you could change the law in a way which then meant the law was the law. And people are scandalised that the UK Parliament, particularly the House of Commons, can't just say, we are stopping this, and that is good law. Yeah. And it stops. And that's what other countries do.
Yeah, and I mean, John, the Prime Minister, one of his big boasts, and he did it again today, when he was answering Kemi Badenoch, is this government is standing up for the rights of women and girls. He says it almost every single week at PMQs. And yet in this case, we're allowing people to come in illegally, which is when they are coming illegally. They may claim asylum, but they're coming illegally, putting too many young girls at risk.
Well, and the rape gangs, he doesn't do anything about either.
There's an investigation into the rape gangs, and looking back into that, he changed the rules, he forced the police to change their culture.
Let's stick with this issue.
Investigated. We'll stick to this issue. You cannot have a blank accusation that all men, because they come from one country,
but no one's making that
kept
accusation.
You said that.
No, what I'm saying is that these men propose a disproportionately greater risk, and therefore we can sit in this world where we say, I'm going to treat everyone as an individual. I'm going to wait till we know we don't have to. What that means is we're waiting.
The rule of law is.
What that means is we're waiting to see which of these Afghan men is a rapist before we do anything about it. The alternative is to not let any in, and then there will be no rapes committed by Afghan men.
You sound like a mad 70s feminist saying all men are rapists.
But I'm not saying that.
No, we're not saying that.
You're saying all Afghan men are rapists.
But we are engaged in a debate that's been impossible to have, because if you say any one nationality pose a greater risk, that has been considered to be something that is so racist and so ghastly and so prejudiced that it can't be debated. But we are now debating it, John, and I promise you public opinion is moving on this very fast.
Yeah, most people do not want illegal migrants coming in, wherever they come from. Why should they come in? And it's a great pity that the Labour government got rid of a sensible piece of legislative change which the Conservatives introduced too late, which was to say that if you come in illegally, you can't then claim asylum. Because there are perfectly good routes.
But John, that's fine. But given ECHR and the Human Rights Act, it wouldn't have worked.
You've got to do that as well. No, you have to
fine.
do that as well. Yeah.
Well, there we are. I will draw a close to that. David, thank you for coming in, saying what you've said. It's a difficult debate, but I tell you, it's one that's being had in the country. Now, the What the Farage moment for the day is £4 billion a year is now the bill for foreign student loans. Well, what's the problem, you say? We lend them the money, they pay it back. The problem is only 56% of it gets paid back. Seems to me, John Redwood, that our universities now are almost like businesses. It's just where can we get money, and it's the government that finishes up out of pocket.
Well, it is indeed, and I don't know why we're extending all this largesse or why we can't get better at reclaiming the money from people. Because the switching of Turing to Erasmus on the EU side is going to be massively expensive, because we set up a scheme here once we were out of the EU to just help British students going to any one of a number of...
the Turing programme.
Yes, a number of good universities around the world. We're now going to say you can't go anywhere other than an EU university, and the bulk of our money will go on EU students coming here, not on our students.
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any sense at all.
These are people who've got the British green card. That you don't lend money. We don't lend money for a student loans company to everybody. You lend it to people who have the right to live in Britain. They've got the green card. They live in Britain. They're going to work in Britain. They're doing postgraduate work. They contribute to the economy. They contribute to the economy always by being students. And The problem about the repayments of student loans is to do with the crazy interest rates, which are the highest. The government, in this budget that we were talking about before, the budget raised the interest
Well,
rates.
I don't disagree with that. It's frankly been usury for the last few years. You know, when base rates were 0.5% and student loan repayments were 6%, I'll tell you what, we'll draw stumps because we found something we actually agree on. Now, in just a moment...
Socialism next.
In just a moment, we'll disagree vehemently because the boss of Centrica says that energy prices in 2030 will be even higher than they were at the time of the invasion of Ukraine. Has this government got its energy policy completely and utterly wrong?
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lots and lots of cheap green energy, lots and lots of jobs. That was the promise from the Prime Minister and the Labour Party ahead of the last election. In fact, the Prime Minister tweeted this out to the country. My Labour government will tackle the root causes of the cost of living crisis and help families save up to £300 on their energy bills. Well, no wonder they got elected with a big majority. That was a really very, very impressive pitch. However, Chris O'Shea, the mustachioed boss of Centrica, has said today that actually energy bills will be higher in 2030 than they were at the time of the invasion of Ukraine. How can all of this possibly be? We're told that wind and solar is the answer to all of our prayers. I'm joined down the line by Catherine Porter, independent energy consultant. Now, Catherine, as I understand it, we've just managed to lock ourselves in to 20-year deals at guaranteed prices above the current market price. Is that the root of the problem?
Well, it's part of it, yes. I mean, now we're going to be paying huge subsidies. And we were told back in 1990, when we first started subsidising wind, that this was, a temporary thing because it's an immature technology that needed, pumps to be primed and so on. After 35 years, if it's not mature, then there's something very wrong with it. But it's not just the fact that it's very expensive to build these things that causes the problem. Wind and solar have very low energy density, which means that they take up a lot of land and they need a lot more wires to connect them up. And they're generally being connected in places that don't already have a grid infrastructure, like the North Sea, for example. Yeah. And so the cost of all that connection is very significant. And that's obviously with this huge new round of subsidies that's been granted, all of those new wind farms and solar farms need to be connected. So that's a huge additional cost onto the grid. But also the cost of managing the intermittency is very expensive. We have to pay other types of generation to be available for backup. The moment-to-moment balancing cost of the grid now becomes so much higher because instead of just having demand being variable, now generation's highly variable as well. That's adding billions of pounds a year more to our bills. And on top of all of that, they keep building wind farms in places there just isn't enough grid capacity and they can't build that quickly enough. And so we're paying curtailment costs, also billions of pounds a year. And that's expected to increase by something like a factor of 9 between now and 2030.
I mean,
so
has the whole thing, since 1990, adopted by both parties, both governments, has it all been the most gigantic con?
Well, I don't know about con, but consumers have definitely been misled. They've been told that green energy is cheap energy, and that's just not true. And now, superficially, it makes sense because you think the wind and the sun are free. Nobody has to pay for sunshine, but the machines that convert that into electricity aren't free. The infrastructure that you need to then bring that electricity to people's homes isn't free. The cost of making sure the grid works properly is higher when you have all of that intermittent generation. And so when you add all of these things together, it just isn't free.
No, Catherine, thank you. Concise, brilliant. Thank you very much. John Wedgwood, it's your mob, isn't it, really? It's your lot, The Saudi Arabia of wind is what Boris talked about, writing net zero into law. It's all your fault.
Well, I certainly didn't support that, and I'm very glad my party has seen the light at last.
Oh, really? A bit late now, isn't it?
Well, better late than never. We've got to put it right, haven't we? Because it is spiralling out of control, and this government came in and has doubled and trebled up on what they're trying to do, and it is very damaging. It's deindustrialising us, it's giving us very expensive energy, and it won't even work in its own terms. They're not going to be able to get all of those items of wind power and solar power connected.
Interesting. Earlier on, John McTernan, you said that you felt politically Keir Starmer was closest to Ed Miliband, who is now the high priest for wind and solar and locking in long-term contracts. The government won't change course on this, will they?
He is the high priest for the return to nuclear.
Which I approve of.
The nuclear fleet, which was, I think, was it Nick Clegg in the coalition said, we need to cancel this because the power won't be there until 2020. That kind of strategic error of backing away from nuclear, both parties did it.
But the problem is, and yes, I'm very pleased that this government is being sensible about nuclear, although I worry about the cost of us doing nuclear.
But it's not going to kick in anytime soon. We're going to lose most of our nuclear first.
And there's also 30 years of grid connections to renew. So you do have to, whether you're doing net zero or not, whether you're doing renewables or not, you have to renew the grid infrastructure. That's a cost.
Which will cost over $1 trillion.
It has to be built.
But it's not just renewing it, it's trebling it or something. You've got to have a massive expansion of it.
Oh, pylons.
You think of all those pylons.
Pylons all across East Anglia.
So
you know it's a disaster, don't you? Come on, be honest.
Your former colleague and fellow Lord Gummer is
I have
one with me.
A long-standing set of disagreements with him.
Do you still really believe in all this?
I do still believe in all this because to get away from the dependence on fossil fuels, we do have to move to some form of energy independence. We do have to find a way to bring the energy.
Okay, all right. Well, final thought on this then from you. Yeah. The Prime Minister, we saw that tweet. I put it up on the screen earlier for everyone to see. very explicit. Our green energy policies will reduce the cost of living, will reduce your energy bills by 300 quid. By my calculations...
That'll be delivered, I believe.
They're up 200 at the moment.
Yeah, we're heading for the end of the government.
And Chris O'Shea says they'll be even higher than they were in 2021.
I believe gas price will fall. I believe that the total bill.
Well, if the gas price falls, it makes it even worse for all this expensive wind.
I mean, I just honestly, I tell you what, I'm not going to take trading advice on the markets from you. I'm really not, because I do not believe they can achieve this. And John, gas, we've got plentiful gas onshore, offshore.
We should get it out.
Is the public ready to accept onshore fracking?
Well, I think it would accept it in the right places with the right compensation. But you would need to consult local communities. You don't force it on them, but I think there are deals to be done. We've already got quite a big oil field, a witch farm in one of the most beautiful parts of the southern coast. But you can live with it.
And it operates. I thank you, my panel, for vigorous debate. Now, moving on to one of the high priests of green energy, Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Well, I almost intervened in your last discussion. It is so mad. And the renewal of the grid is all about green energy. Otherwise, it's just routine maintenance. The cost is a fraction of what they're saying for the new connections. I'd also say, if there's one businessman I dealt with as a minister who I would really trust, it's Chris O'Shea.
Oh, really?
He's a very, very impressive man, knows his business. Yeah. He's a good PR man as well, and he's good at arguing his company's case, but I thought he was a really impressive businessman. What am I talking about?
What's your main themes tonight?
Well, the government's decided to tear up the Constitution, rip it to pieces and forget how this country's governed. We're not going to be HM government anymore. We're going to kill it in a rather sort of down-market, middling, town hall-style way, UK government. It's losing all the glamour of our country, but it also doesn't understand the Constitution, which is based on the King in Parliament.
So they're dropping the King?
They're dropping the King. Well, they think they're king. They're all frightfully grand and important. They want to be king, and they want year zero. Socialists always want to start from year zero.
The Emperor's got no clothes. Right, here it comes. Let's have a look at the awful weather forecast. I know it's going to be appalling.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A very dull day to come for many of us tomorrow. Some brighter weather here and there, but it will be much colder, particularly for northeastern areas. We're starting to get northerly winds, cold air pushing in from the north. Low pressure systems also bringing batches of rain along these weather fronts, and there will be some quite heavy rain across many southern areas through this evening, pushing into the southeast. That should clear by tomorrow morning, but behind it, a mess of cloud and outbreaks of drizzly rain, particularly across parts of Northern Ireland and northeastern areas of England, as well as eastern Scotland through this evening. Will turn a little bit dry, though, for the far north of Scotland. As a result, with some clearer skies around, it could be quite a chilly start to the day on Thursday. So outbreaks of rain for some areas through Thursday morning. The far north of Scotland getting away with a fairly dry day, though for Shetland and Orkney we've still got a risk of snow showers through Thursday morning. Northern Ireland seeing the worst of drizzly rain. It's quite light, but it will be persistent through much of the day, in fact. Cloudy skies for much of England. The far southwest seeing outbreaks of heavy showers into the morning, so a risk of some quite heavy rain and some quite brisk westerly winds. Still relatively mild out there or across more southwestern areas to start the day on Thursday. Elsewhere, though, a chillier feel to come through the day. We've got these winds coming in from the North Sea across many eastern coasts. That's going to bring a chillier feel, and outbreaks of persistent rain for many northern areas of England and southern Scotland will bring a pretty dismal feel to the day. Across the southwest, though, still 10 or 11 degrees, but that's the last of the mild weather as cold weather becomes more dominant, at least for a time. A risk of snow and sleet. We do have snow and ice warnings in force until around lunchtime on Friday. It's a risk of icy surfaces and snow accumulating over the high ground. But there will be a break in the weather for Saturday, a day of sunshine to come. It won't last all that long, though, because the rain will return for Sunday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
you could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British Giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for 2 people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where